Welcome to Logos in the Chaos. Today I'm going to look at the following question. Was Charlie Kirk a racist, sexist bigot who got what he deserved? That's certainly the opinion of some people, as exemplified by the audio from this TikTok video.
Don't be fooled. These people don't give a single shit about Charlie Kirk. They are just using his death to further their Christo-fascist agenda. And before I continue, I need to say that this revisionist history about who Kirk was is just as perplexing. I'm seeing all these heartfelt statements coming from Democratic politicians and celebrities applauding Kirk as some bastion of free speech and debate. Kirk was a reprehensible human being. He enacted his political agenda by preying upon weak-minded people. He took complex socioeconomic issues and simplified them by pointing fingers at out-groups, demonizing those groups, and then sicking his massive following on them. He was a stochastic terrorist, an adamant transphobe. He denied the genocide happening in Palestine. He believed in the subjugation of women, and with his last dying words, he was spewing racist dog whistles. Charlie Kirk was Dr. Frankenstein, and his monster shot him through the neck. And all of that said, none of us should want to live in a society where these types of killings become the norm. It's the sign of a sick and dying world, and we can both denounce this violence and also realize that Kirk and his ilk's rhetoric are why it happens. And you can see this rhetoric continuing after his death. Far-right extremists are clogging social media, practically begging to use his death as an excuse to enact massive retributory violence against Democrats or liberals or leftists. They are looking for any excuse to justify their desire to kill their opposition. As of writing this, we have no idea why Kirk was shot.
It's hard to take something like that seriously. It's so full of venom and so one-sided. And, when someone sounds like they've just swallowed a dictionary of political slogans, and when all the arguments don't have substance and can be used against the other side, they just become vacuous. It becomes a railing. And, we shouldn't be surprised that there's so much of this out there. I mean, it's not saying that some of the things he was saying are not true of what some of the right are doing, but it's just so blind and one-sided. It becomes interesting, though, when someone who is an elected representative of US Congress reposts that and backs it up. And this is what Ilhan Omar did, and she defends her actions on a CNN interview. If you find this content helpful or interesting, please don't forget to like and subscribe.
But I am not going to sit here and be judged for not wanting to honor any legacy this man has left behind. That should be in the dustbin of history, and we should hopefully move on and forget the hate that he spewed every single day.
In my last video, I expressed my sadness about Charlie Kirk's death, and I said, if your received narrative sees him as a divisive bigot, you might need the medicine of actually listening to what he said. I was so happy to come across this video where a self-confessed Democrat, Freudian slip there, sorry. A self-confessed Democrat did just that. She went and looked at what Charlie Kirk actually said in his videos.
I can't stand the word empathy, actually. I think empathy is a made-up New Age term that does a lot of damage, but
I personally find the word empathy quite useful, so I would disagree with Charlie Kirk there, but I wouldn't disagree with what I'm quite certain he was trying to express if you took him in context. And that's what this self-confessed Democrat actually did.
I'm a lifelong Democrat, and I have spent hours out of my life the past few days watching Charlie Kirk debates. And if that pisses you off, then you especially should stay. Because when I tell you I've been absolutely consumed, not by the debates themselves or why I didn't agree with him, but it's our party that has left me feeling unsettled. And if you're a Democrat watching this, I really hope you take this not as an attack, but like from a friend who really cares. First, let's talk about the concept of mob mentality, which by definition just means being influenced by a larger group and losing your own personal judgment in the process. And the example I want to use is that clip that was everywhere, that went viral, everybody was quoting it, where Charlie said, "I don't like the word empathy." We've probably all seen the short and the long version at this point, where he goes on to clarify that he prefers the word sympathy. Agree with him or disagree with him, doesn't matter to me. The point is, the real conversation never happened because the clip was cut in half. Why? To reinforce the idea that the right is full of these monsters who reject human feelings, right? That wasn't an accident. That omission was deliberate and strategic so that you would form an opinion about a person without using your own informed personal judgment. Does that bother you? If somebody's truly evil, shouldn't the truth just be enough? Shouldn't we be trusted to come to the right conclusion all on our own? Maybe you would have come to the same conclusion, but maybe you wouldn't have. Then there's the hypocrisy, okay? If you honestly ask me how many times in the past year I've seen the left dox and unemploy a person over hateful speech, I wouldn't be able to. And I get it. Actions have consequences. I'm not arguing that. But the same principles apply to us. If we sound the fascism alarm, we cannot celebrate death over speech. If we advocate for gun control, we cannot celebrate gun violence. If we call for diversifying our worldview, we can't then close off conversations that are uncomfortable but that could possibly, maybe, lead to some kind of understanding. If we call the right a cult, we cannot cancel influencers who show empathy and sympathy to the wrong family. Think about it. One of the signs of a cult is pressuring members to cut off family members and friends who are outside of the group. Another is using guilt and shame to enforce conformity. Another, creating a me versus them mentality, demonizing them and creating dependence in us.
Well, all I can say about that compared to that TikTok video is hallelujah, the voice of reason. And maybe Jesus would say to her, you're not far from the kingdom. And I would say to her, keep seeking truth and go wherever it will lead you. So in answer to the question, was Charlie Kirk a racist, sexist bigot? The simple answer is no. And I don't even have to argue it further because all the evidence is out there and you can go check it out for yourself. You can actually go look at his memorial service. You can look at what was said. And what that first TikTok video person was saying, that they're just inciting violence, etc., prove it. Like Charlie Kirk said, prove me wrong. Prove it. And there's no proof. There's only proof in your imagination. And you're just betraying how out of touch with reality you are. And the more interesting question, because that's such a simple question to answer, the more interesting question is, why do so many people believe that? In the face of reason, in the face of contrary evidence, why do they believe that? And I've really been asking myself this question over the last year or two as I was looking at the political scene. The realization came to me that people on the extreme left are really self-righteous and really believe that they are the only ones who are good. And automatically the other side is bad. And I remember when this penny dropped for me, I was watching The View and the ladies from Macbeth on The View spewing against Donald Trump and literally spitting every time they said his name, like literally. And I remember what they were saying. They were having this cognitive dissonance where they couldn't work out why he'd been elected. They were just blind to the faults of the left. And they were saying, but we're the ones who care for people. We're the ones who are for people's rights and that. And I realized that progressive left-wing extremists really do believe that. Then I came across this video which confirmed that conclusion. And what's interesting is that this is from someone who used to hold that view.
They really, really, really believe, and I know this because I was one of them once, they really believe that to be a progressive is to be on the moral high ground. Why? Because to be a progressive means you believe in things like the brotherhood of man. You believe in doing stuff to get rid of prejudice and war and bigotry, and you are anti-racist, and you believe in the power of reason. This is what you tell yourself. And consequently, anybody who comes along and says, well, actually, you're completely wrong, and far from actually ushering in an age of reason, you are ushering in an age of irrationality for these reasons. You support, the Palestinians, but in fact, this is what they are doing. They preach hatred and death to Jews the whole time. This is what you're supporting. So here's that evidence, or here is the evidence of, I don't know, anything, and that's against a left-wing ideology. And they will say, and I know this is how they think, they will say to themselves, well, they may say to themselves, I kind of thought that a bit, because I can see this evidence. And I thought, can that be true? And then I realized that it's coming from people who are on the right, and therefore it cannot be true, because anybody who's on the right is against human flourishing, is a really bad person. They are not for the betterment of humanity. They're selfish. They are hidebound. They are reactionary. They are uneducated, whatever it is. And they're saying this. So it can't be true, because anybody who's not like me, who am a progressive person and therefore morally pure and virtuous and good and true, anyone who's not like me is basically anyone who's not like me is right-wing, and anyone who's right-wing is bad and evil. Anyone who's bad and evil is right-wing. Anyone who's right-wing is bad and evil. And that's how it works. So you can't get through. There is no fact that you can produce.
In culture terms, I'd call it a thought-terminating cliche, where
oh, right.
Scientology would, rather than, I used to do a lot on Scientology, and that was my old podcast on the cults and things. Oh. It was amazing to see those who have left, who say, gosh, if you spoke to me 10 years ago when I was in that cult, there was not a single thing you could have said.
Yes.
And they would say, this person is in Scientology, they say suppressive person, and it means anything they say is nonsense. So if they can sit there and prove to you that L. Ron Hubbard was a liar and Lord Xenu doesn't exist, and you would say, no, but you're a suppressive person, I won't even entertain your ideas.
Right. It's the same thing.
Must be ingrained into the human psyche in some sense.
It's the same thing. It's the same thing. And it's also, and it's the sort of the herd mentality. They are in a bubble. All their social circle is in the same bubble.
It was the writer and journalist Mel Phillips, and the link to that whole video is below. And I think she's making a lot of sense. Oh, may the Lord multiply the voices of reason in today's world. The biased, venomous ones, whether they are left or right, are like poison in society. And I kind of think if we can multiply the voice of reason, it's like taking this poison, which can kill you, but diluting it in an Olympic swimming pool, and it becomes of no effect. I'm just thinking of this right now. In that last video, I said when they tried to smash Charlie Kirk, it was like trying to smash a water drop, and he just disintegrated into millions of droplets, and they each started to grow. And I'm just thinking of all those droplets adding up to an ocean, more than an Olympic-sized swimming pool, to an ocean. And the poison, when it's diluted in this ocean of reason, and people actually willing to dialogue and willing to go and actually look at the source documents, which is the first thing you learn if you ever do any academic study, that it would just dilute that poison and render it ineffective. In the meantime, we'll have to put up with a whole lot of people running around like self-proclaimed prophets and gurus saying, I've made up my mind, don't confuse me with the facts. May God's truth and reason and his love and kindness just be manifest. And I'll leave the last words once again to Jesus, who came to demonstrate God's love and truth. It's in Matthew chapter 7, verse 1 to 5. Do not judge, or you too will be judged. For in the same way you judge others, you'll be judged, and with the measure you use, it will be measured to you. Why do you look at the speck of sawdust in your brother's eye and pay no attention to the plank in your own eye? How can you say to your brother, let me take the speck out of your eye, when all the time there's a plank in your own eye? You hypocrite, first take the plank out of your own eye, and then you will see clearly to remove the speck from your brother's eye.